Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 6. In this video, we will talk about language, cognition, and culture. And there are Aisya Perdana Asmaja, Nila Shabillah, Sophia Anggela, Zullia Tri Lestari, Rizka Annisa, and the last one, Renny Nur Ferlyanti.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aisya Perdana Asmaja with college number 2010-205007. So, I will explain my material about language and perception. This quotation occurs in a textbook written by a male medical expert for medical students. But they also provide clues about the way doctors view patients. Perhaps the most obvious feature of the text is it is impersonal and detached tone, which is achieved through the use of agentless passive construction. Surgery is blank 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 indicated. Impersonal nouns, the physician and the patient, and formal device such as nominalizations. So, for example, surgery is indicated rather than doctors think that people need surgery when blank blank blank, or even I think that blank blank blank. This construction also permits the author to neatly avoid drawing attention to reasons for the failure of the treatment to control symptoms. This example and those discussed in the previous section suggest that there is a close relationship between language and perception. The relationship between language, though, and reality has fascinated linguists and philosophers for centuries. In recent times, the person whose name is most closely associated with investigation of the relationship between language and thought is Benjamin Lee Whorf. Whorf was an anthropological linguist who began his career as a chemical engineer working for a fire insurance company. He first investigated Native American language as a hobby, but later studied with Edward Sapir at Yale University. I think that's all for my material. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nila Shabillah with student number 2010-25008. Then I want to explain my material that is about linguistic determinism. The medium is the message. Well, as you know, the hypothesis most commonly associated with the US linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf that is generally labeled linguistic determinism. This holds that people from different cultures think differently because of difference in their language. Some languages have linguistic categories which take account of the shape of objects. There is interesting findings based on experiment with the colors and shape that all support the weaker principle of linguistic relativity. The categories provided by a language may make it easier to draw certain conceptual distinction. Well, everyone, like you can see the example of number in four language on your screen. In English, it calls like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In French, it calls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But in Chinese, the pronouns is different like yi, san, si, wu, and liu. And in Japanese, it's ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku. In addition, the Chinese word for 11, shi yi, is literally 10 1, and for 20, the Chinese word is si, literally 210. Consequently, learning to count beyond 10 is easier for Chinese-speaking children than for English-speaking children. I think that's all of my material. The next material will be explained by my friends. Thank you for listening.
Alright, I will continue the material. This is about grammar and cognition. Grammatical categories such as tense, aspect, and gender encode aspects of reality differently in different languages. Let's see the example 8. Susan Romain comments that no particular language has a privileged view of the world as it really is. The world is not simply the way it is, but what we make of it through language. The domains of experience, which are important to cultures, get grammaticalized into languages. As the quotation in example X suggests that the areas of experience which are important to cultures tend to get grammaticalized in their languages. It is like something is said to be grammaticalized or grammaticized when it functions less and less like an independent lexical item and more like an element in the grammatical system, such as an affix or an auxiliary verb. I think that's all. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I will continue the material linguistic categories and culture. Native American and Australian Aboriginal languages are often cited as examples which strongly refute popular misconceptions about primitive languages. Using Western criteria, the traditional nomadic lifestyle of the Aboriginal people of Australia seems very simple. Their culture, however, is thousands of years old, and their languages are amongst the most interesting and grammatically complex that have been researched. Particular types of experience establish association which determine the class membership of some items, as you can see on the table 13.2. However, verbal myths and cultural beliefs also make a contribution to class allocation. So, contrary to Western mythology, the moon is male and husband of the sun, which is a female. Hence, the moon is in class 1 with men, while the sun is in class 2 with women. Birds are believed to be the spirits of that human females, and hence they are also in class 2. The system is of course totally automatic for verbal speakers, and one should not necessarily expect of speakers to be able to explain it to an outsider. Nor should we expect the relationship between categorization and cultural beliefs to be direct, transparent, or available to reflection. Alright, even at the lexical semantic level, Aboriginal languages challenge Western preconceptions about primitive languages. As table 13.3 illustrates, Lori Kunwingku has many more terms to label distinction among kangaroos and wallabies than English does. From this perspective, language provides a means of encoding a community's knowledge, beliefs, and value. Its mean is culture. Thus, don't make a distinction between sadness and sickness. For instance, using the same word for both. This accurately represents their belief that sadness or sickness can be attributed to an attack by evil spirits, a belief that may initially seem odd to someone from Western culture. However, Western medical practice now recognizes depression as an illness, and English uses many metaphorical terms for depression which no doubt appear just as strange to those from other cultures. For example, feeling blue, in loud spirits, feeling down, under the weather, and so on. I think that's all my explanation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Rizka Annisa with student number 2020-5024. Here, I'd like to explain the material about the relationship between language and culture. Less tangible concepts such as kinship further illustrate the complexities of the relationship between language and culture. In Maori culture, relative age is very important. Even the status of the tribe or area to which you belong will be identified in Taina and Tuakana. Terms relative to other tribes. The importance of the extended family or one now as an important social unit It is also evident in the kinship system. Kinship labels indicate the mutual right and obligation of different members of the Wanao towards each other. It has been suggested that all kinship systems are likely to encode distinction based on genealogy and biology. So, parenthood, marriage, relationship, sex, and generation are distinctions expressed in some way in most systems that have been studied, but the precise ways in which they are encoded and the fineness of the distinctions and their cultural significance differ dramatically from one culture to another. As you can see here, table 13.4 about semantic categories of positions with one category A words, for example, arm, grandmother, land, niece, face, family, built on my land, and the last one leg or of a person. List two category B words, for example, car, house, money, food, cow, fence, flower, and the last one leg or of land. Also restricts your marriage options since you may only marry someone from the other minority. This makes sense of the fact that some cousins have the same kinship terms as brothers and sisters, while others do not. You can marry your father's sister's children or outside minority, but not your father's brother, children, or the same minority. Thus, kinship terms signal your potential marriage partners. Again, the lexical labels serve as indicator of the complex mutual social rights and obligation of the community members. I think that's all for my explanation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Renny Nur Ferlyanti with ID number 2020-5027. Okay, I will explain to you about language, social class, and cognition. You can look at this on the screen. Example 13. A. Amy, the daughter of a Scottish aristocratic family, was enrolled at an English public, private fee paying boarding school in the south of England. At the end of her first month, she failed all the oral progress tests. The school assumed she lacked intellectual ability. This is outrageous. Her mother declared she is an outstandingly intelligent young woman. What is the problem? Her English is deficient. She can communicate, responded her form teacher. We can understand a word she say. Well, that's your problem, announces Amy's mother. You had better learn too. B. Middle-class children do well in school. Working-class children don't do well in school. Middle-class children speak a different variety of English than working-class children. So, usual conclusion, working-class children should change the way they speak, spot the faulty logic. So, the previous section provided an example of the potentially punitive social implication of the culturally different ways of interacting, even when both groups are using varieties of the same language. Others have been interested in whether there are possible cognitive implications where use different varieties of language. And then Basil Bernstein was a sociolinguist who asked this question in the 1960s. Like many educationalists, he was concerned that British children from a working class background were not progressing well at school. It was also widely recognized that working class children spoke English differently from middle class children. So was easy to conclude that these two observations were related, rather than deducing that the teacher tended to favor children who use more standard varieties. Unfortunately, they assume that kind of the language working class children use in a formal
interview situation through a middle-class adult was an accurate representation of their sociolinguistic competence. I think that's all for my explanation. Thank you.
I think that's all about our video. Thank you for your nice attention, and last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.